Welcome to Sports Night in Auburn. Welcome to Sports Night in Auburn.
And welcome back to Sports Night in Auburn.
Few rivalries carry the weight of the Iron Bowl, but on Saturday, it wasn't football fueling the fire. It was the top two teams in college basketball battling for supremacy in the state of Alabama and far beyond. Welcome to Sports Night in Auburn. My name is Vince Wolfram. Number 1 versus number 2, Auburn versus Alabama. Bragging rights, rankings, and a whole lot of pride were on the line in Tuscaloosa in front of a charged-up crowd at Coleman Coliseum. High stakes, unmatched intensity, and another storybook contest to add to Iron Bowl history.
Anytime Auburn meets Alabama, another chapter to their storied rivalry is written. Today's chapter was called Number 1 versus Number 2, and it was primarily authored by Auburn guard Denver Jones.
He's one of the best defenders in college basketball. He needs to be on the Naismith all-defensive team. Mark Sears is one of the best players in college basketball, period. And not that he did it by himself, but he did a great job on Mark. Made his catches tough, stayed down, stayed with him in the basket. How do you stay in front of Mark Sears? Hardly anybody can. Denver Jones did.
Auburn held up to a 14-point second-half lead, primarily due to the dominance of Denver Jones. Alabama made a late push to try and take the reins of this battle, but it was big shots from Tahad Pettiford and Chad Baker-Mazara that helped the Tigers outduel the Crimson Tide.
Neither one of those shots was anything brilliant offensively. Chad just pulls up, kind of with the clock running down, nothing else is going on, makes a shot. And I think Tahad's was his was in transition, and he was clean. And it's like one of those shots, well, maybe you should run offense in that situation. Hey, he was clean. He can make that shot. I thought that was a little bit of a dagger.
The Tigers won in the game of runs, and therefore they never trailed in the game. 2 9-0 runs to start the first and the second half paid off in the end.
What it does is it sends a message that we came here with the idea that we're going to try to win the game. I thought every time you saw Miles Kelly or Denver coming off a screen, you're like, I'm sure you're going, oh, no. I'm going, oh, yeah.
With the 9-point win today, head coach Bruce Pearl made history. He became the first college basketball coach in the history of the sport to take 2 different schools into a number 1 versus number 2 matchup and walk away victorious. The first of which in 2008 as the head coach of Tennessee when the Volunteers beat Memphis. The second today in Tuscaloosa as number 1 Auburn beat number 2 Alabama. For Eagle Eye TV Sports, I'm Vince Wolfram.
Bruce talked about Denver needing some acknowledgement for his play, and BP, I'll tell you this much. Last week as a whole was the Denver Jones show, and as a result, the people saw it. Denver Jones was named last week's SEC Player of the Week. Against Alabama, Jones had 16 points with 3 triples and forced All-American point guard Mark Sears for Alabama to shoot 4 of 17 from the field and 2 of 11 from distance. In Wednesday's game against Vanderbilt, Jones was Auburn's leading scorer with 21 points and 5 made triples. Jones was also one of 5 players honored as Oscar Robertson National Player of the Week. He joins Walker Kessler and Johni Broome as the 3rd ever player in program history to earn National Player of the Week honors. Quite the weekend for Denver Jones, and he's been the head of the snake for this Auburn team that's been dominating in their last couple of games. I want to bring in Micah Farmer now to talk about this 1-2 showdown between Auburn and Alabama. Alabama entered the game as a 1.5-point favorites. Micah, what did Auburn do to win this game?
Well, I think a big part of it was no slow start for Johni Broome. He came out and was a factor immediately in this first half. Then the Auburn defense, this Alabama team, we talked about it all week. They're going to shoot threes, and usually they're going to make threes. They didn't do as much of that versus Auburn. The Auburn perimeter defense really managed to lock them down, and then, the Crimson Tide does not like mid-range buckets, so they were forced to really drive to the rim. And then when you have good rim defense as well with Johni Broome, the Alabama offense was really limited for much of the game, and that's a big reason why they never held a lead through the entire time. I was very impressed with the Auburn defense, and then 6 scores with 13 or more points. I think that speaks for itself on offense.
Yeah, a full game from Auburn nonetheless. And in a game between the top 2 teams, a lot can be decided. What about this Auburn team as a whole makes them the number 1 team in the country in your mind?
They can win in pretty much every way. You look at this team went down to Houston and beat Houston in Houston's kind of game. Managed to come back from a big deficit versus Iowa State and Maui. Now go into Alabama, control that game. The rock fight in Neville versus Tennessee. This team can win any way it needs to, on any day it needs to. And I think Auburn is really the only team that showed the ability to do that at this point in the season. I think every other team has a specific style where they cannot really amount to and make a difference in, whereas Auburn, I think this team can play any kind of basketball it needs to on any given day.
Yeah, consistency has been the word for Auburn basketball so far, and with that Auburn win, another thing stays the same. Auburn is the #1 team in college basketball for the 6th straight week in the AP poll. Auburn's 2 losses this season sit right behind them in the polls, with Florida at number 2 and Duke at number 3, and Alabama falls to 4. Something new this week and the first time this season was a top 16 seed projection for the NCAA tournament. Let's take a look at that now. It's SEC dominated, which is no shock to any of us. Micah, is there any team from outside the conference that you would swap in for one of these top 6 SEC teams?
Well, honestly, the first thing that comes to my mind when I see this top 6 is get Tennessee out of here. This Tennessee team has been struggling recently. A lot of close games. Had almost a home court loss to Vanderbilt this past week. I know Vanderbilt's not bad, but if you're a top 6 seed, that's not a game you can be, in my opinion, even close to losing. I would take teams like Houston and, honestly, a healthy Iowa State over Tennessee right now. I would put either of them up there and, honestly, above A&M as well. So I think both Texas A&M and Tennessee are slightly too high in this. Other than that, I'm fine with the top 4. I think the top 4 is what it should be right now, and if this was the top 4 on Selection Sunday, if everything goes chalk in the tournaments, which, let's face it, it won't, I would be satisfied with it.
Yeah, and you never know at this point of the year what's going to happen. There's a lot of ball left to play. Next for Auburn is a visit from what was the leader of a blue blood that is now the coach of an underdog in red, John Calipari and Arkansas. The Kentucky lineage is what goes for this Arkansas team, with multiple former Wildcats leading the charge now for the Razorbacks. Micah, what are some matchups that you're looking at in this game on Wednesday night?
Well, a lot of this Arkansas team is the offense. You saw it in Rupp Arena. This team was raining down shots, and Adu Thiero, you look at Zvonimir Ivicic as well, and then John L. Davis, the FAU transfer, has also been really hot for them recently, has had 18 or more in 3 of their last 5 games. And then a guy who I felt should have made this graphic but just didn't because he's been a little cold recently is DJ Wagner. And teams have been really keying in on Wagner defensively. It's opened the scoring up for players like Davis, but you look at Auburn and the amount of defensive capability that the Tigers have, I think you can afford to lock in on Wagner and still maybe have players to take down Davis after that. So I would expect the Auburn defense to play well, and when Arkansas's offense is shut down, the defense will give up space. So if I'm Auburn, I would want to get the ball moving back and forth a lot. Arkansas is going to miss a coverage. You'll have an open shot.
Yeah, that Arkansas team, they can turn it on offense whenever they'd like, but we'll see what the jungle does to them. That game is set for Wednesday, 8 p.m. Central on ESPN. Looking even further ahead, Saturday will be another test. The first time Auburn played Georgia was in Athens in January, and it was a game that Auburn escaped 70-68. Georgia was ranked in the first matchup. This time, Georgia 4-9 in conference play, and they are riding a 3-game losing skid right now. What should Auburn be ready for in this game against the Bulldogs Saturday?
Well, anytime you play Georgia this season, Vince, you're going to have to be ready for Asa Newell. The freshman is the engine that makes this offense run. They love to work the ball to him down low and let him go to work. He is the heartbeat of this team. Then on the outside, you have Silas Tamari Jr. and Blue Kane, who can both knock down shots when they need to. But once again, though, this Auburn perimeter defense, I think, is going to be able to contain those 2 guys. And then if you get Dylan Cardwell, Janai Broom, Chaney Johnson down low on Newell, I think you can slow him down as well. And the big X factor for this game is not any of the players on the floor. It's the Mike White experience at Georgia. If you've ever been a fan of a team coached by Mike White, you know those teams fall off hard at the end of the year. And they're in the midst of that right now. 3-game losing streak. I would expect that to continue on Saturday.
The Mike White impact, certainly something to watch with the Bulldogs moving forward. And from next games to next season, the good news keeps on rolling in for Auburn basketball. After taking his official visit during the Florida game, Abdul Bashir announced his commitment to the Plains. The 6'7" JUCO transfer from Casper College is a combo guard averaging over 25 points per contest with 2 big 40-point games. This kid, he can score the rock. With the addition of Bashir, Auburn's class is currently ranked 16th in the 2025 cycle. Welcome to the jungle, Abdul Bashir. And Auburn Hoops knows what they have coming up. I know what's coming up. And our weatherman, Albert Osorio, most certainly knows what's going down this weekend. He has the Auburn Sports Weather Reports when we come back. Welcome back to Sports Night in Auburn. I'm Albert Osorio, here to give you your weather outlook of the week. Auburn baseball will face North Alabama on Wednesday. We're having a 3-game series against Wright State on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Women's tennis will also play Florida this Sunday. Wednesday will see showers that morning, but should clear going into the first pitch in the afternoon. The rest of the week should see sunny to mostly cloudy skies with highs averaging 51 degrees and lows averaging 27 degrees. Definitely colder than last week, so make sure you bundle up. That's all I have for this week. When we come back, you'll hear from our anchors regarding women's basketball, softball, and baseball. Once again, I'm Albert Osorio, and you're watching Sports Night in Auburn. Welcome back to Sports Night in Auburn. A lot of tough battles in Tiger sports this week. Auburn, Alabama on the men's hoop side. Auburn in a challenging slate of games on the women's side for Coach Johnny Harris and company. Gesch is with us to catch up on all things women's hoops, and Mackenzie, Deutschmann, and Kegan Miller will join us shortly with updates from the Diamond. Gehrig, we'll start with you, my guy. Deanna Gaston leading the way for Auburn women's hoops. What's the scoop?
Yeah, Vince, Auburn women's basketball opened their 2-game week in Knoxville, Tennessee on Thursday. They fell to the Lady Volunteers 99-61. Deanna Gaston was good once again, though, as she picked up her 6th double-double of the season. Then on Sunday, Coach Jay's Tigers were back in Neville Arena to take on Vanderbilt. Yu-Ting Dang and Deanna Gaston each had 25+, but it ultimately was not enough as the Commodores went on to win 98-88 in overtime. Vanderbilt's freshman sensation Michaela Blake scored 3 of her 55 points at the free throw line to send the game to overtime. Eagle Eye's Maddie Baughn was in Neville Arena and has more on Blake's offensive outpour.
Taking a break from their road game streak, Auburn is back in Neville Arena to host the Vanderbilt Commodores for their second-to-last home game of this season. Both teams are looking to get back into that win column as Auburn dropped 2 road losses last week, and Vanderbilt finds themselves on a 3-game losing streak. 3 SEC top scorers faced each other on the hardwood tonight. SEC second top scorer Deanna Gaston broke 25 points for the Tigers and reached the 1,500 career point milestone. On the visitor side, Vandy's Michaela Blakes, an SEC third top scorer, broke her own freshman NCAA record for most points scored in a game with a total of 55. She also went 23 for 24 on the line. A career-high night for Yu-Ting Dang with 27 points. Number 9 made 4 shots from the outside and put the Tigers in the lead for over 38 minutes. Auburn had an impressive game for 44 points in the paint and outscored Vandy in the first 3 quarters. However, foul trouble in the fourth led Auburn to lose senior Marshawn Bostic and gave Vandy the upper hand to outscore the Tigers with 28 points. The fast 40 turned into a faster 45 for the Commodores as they took the Tigers to overtime in the jungle. A 12-2 scoring run brought a devastating open to overtime for Auburn. Gaston being the only scorer with 2 free throws and a 2-point jumper, Auburn fell to the Commodores on the home court.
We got to keep fighting. You know, I told them before the game that we just have to come out, set the tone, and I thought we did. But obviously, I mean, you could see the fatigue, and then once that went, we just started making poor decisions, and we'll have to come back and play a really good Alabama team.
After a trip into overtime, Auburn falls to Vanderbilt 98-88. For Eagle Eye TV, I'm Maddie Baughn.
And here's Coach Harris on Saturday's hectic finish.
I tried to call timeouts in the fourth quarter to rest, you know, our to rest our kids, and I thought, you know, in that fourth quarter we got tired and we started making bad decisions. We missed layups. We missed 3 layups that really hurt us, and then we made bad decisions down there, fouling, not switching right and fouling.
Now let's go back to Deanna Gaston, who hit a huge career milestone during the game. The SEC's 3rd leading scorer got point number 1,500 during her dominant performance. Up next for women's basketball is a trip to the team up north. The Tigers will match up against the Alabama Crimson Tide this Sunday at 4 p.m. Now let's go somewhere warm where Mackenzie has more on Auburn softball's hot start.
Well, Gehrig, Auburn softball swung for the fences last week at the Shriners Children's Clearwater Invitational that took place in Clearwater, Florida. Auburn played a total of 6 games, starting off with a 6-3 win against Clemson on Thursday, followed by a 7-6 win against Virginia on Friday. Later that afternoon, Auburn faced off against the University of Central Florida, where they continued their winning streak with a final score of 1-0. Heading into Saturday, they defeated both Charlotte and Oklahoma State with scores 14-11 and 2-1. Finally, on Sunday, they faced Liberty, winning 2-1 for the clean sweep. With 2 clean sweep invitationals under their belt, Auburn softball continues their season still undefeated. Auburn was the first team to post a 6-0 record at the Shriners Children's Clearwater Invitational since Florida State in 2019. Moving forward, the Tigers head to Madison, Alabama for the Rocket City Showcase this weekend, starting Friday, February 21st. Now let's pitch it to Kegan for some updates on Auburn baseball.
Thank you, Mackenzie. And well, opening weekend has came and went. The Tigers sit at 2-1, winning both the opener and closer against Holy Cross. The Tigers pitching staff, led by Cade Fisher, shut out Holy Cross's offense, allowing just 1 run and 1 hit, fanning 10 at the same time. But that's not the biggest story of the night. A story even bigger than baseball was displayed that night. But the student section was packed out in right field for the magical opening night. I got the chance to talk to some very excited and colorful fans, and even caught up with the young fan who caught K-Blue's inspiring home run ball.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here at Plainsman Park for opening night, where Auburn is currently taking on Holy Cross with a 2-1 lead in the bottom of the 5th. This is the back 40 deck, as they call it. The student sections, they like to gather around, watch the games, heckle the opponent's bullpen. Let's go take a look. I'm here with Trace on opening night, taking in the environment. One of the students here in the back 40 deck. What are your thoughts on this environment?
Oh, man, it's electric, dude. Like, Auburn baseball, you can't beat it. Honestly, any Auburn sport, man, absolutely cannot beat it. The fans, they make it, man. They really make it.
What's your prediction for the season, and what players are you excited to watch?
Oh, season? Oh, it's going to be great. Absolutely, man. And the number 1 person I'm looking to watch is Samuel Dutton, our right-hand pitcher. He's going to be number 1, man. I'm telling you.
I'm excited to watch Ike Irish, man. He's going to ball out this season. Let's go! Yeah! Ike Irish, baby!
Hey, standing out here in the back 40 deck, there's a chance you may catch a home run by Ike Irish. Do you think that happens this season?
I'm hoping tonight. He's hitting one tonight. I'm dropping back right here, firing it to second all the way. He's hitting one tonight. I trust.
I'm here with Ansley. And Ansley, what's your favorite part about Auburn baseball?
My favorite part about Auburn baseball is the hot dogs and the Chick-fil-A stand.
That's a great answer.
I can use my dining dollars too.
Yes,
That's the best part.
What's a player you're really interested in watching throughout the year?
Oh, Bub Terrell.
Bub Terrell. So you get to see him up close and personal. I don't know if you can see that. That's Bub Terrell right there in right field. So I'm sure you're talking a lot of game to him, trying to amp him up a little bit.
Big old boy, it's bomb.
I'm here with New, where Cade Blue just hit a home run back here, and guess what? You caught it, didn't you?
Yes.
How excited are you right now?
So excited.
Show him the ball. That's right. That's the magic ball right there from Cade Blue. What an incredible moment.
What a moment it was for all the Auburn faithful at Plainsman Park on Friday night in the first game of Auburn's season. It's always a great thing when you get away with a win in your first game. Unfortunately, Game 2 didn't go as most had anticipated. Sophia Weber was at the game and has more on Saturday's unexpected turn of events.
I'm reporting outside the renovated Plainsman Park, where the Auburn Tigers match up with Holy Cross for their second game in their 3-game opening series. Samuel Dutton started the first inning, striking out 3 of 4 batters. Batting first for Auburn, Bristol Carter found success at the plate as he sent a ball out to the right field. Later, in the bottom of the first, he came home off an RBI from Cooper McMurray. Miscommunication on this throw to first and fielding errors for Auburn led to a surge in the Holy Cross offense, who knocked their rest off in yesterday's outing. Auburn was able to make plays in the outfield, but with Crusaders on the corners, Holy Cross was able to get their first lead of the series in the top of the 3rd. It became a game of the senior pitchers. Samuel Dutton had 7 strikeouts, but allowed 3 runs. But he had help from defensive players like Eric Snow. Pitching the first 4 innings and debuting after an injury last season was Patriot League Preseason Player of the Year, Sean Scanlon, and here he is, rounding home. Bristol Carter would be responsible for both of Auburn's only runs, this one with the awareness to draw a 2-out balk out of the pitcher from third. Coach Butch Thompson spoke before this game about the depth of his squad.
I think as you go through 8 games in 10 days, that's going to force you to probably use 13 or 14 position players at the end of those 10 days.
Brendan Jones made a 2-run game after Scanlon hit one out to right field in the 9th. In a matchup of freshman Leon from Holy Cross strikes out Terrell in the bottom of the 9th. Holy Cross gets their final out and celebrates an upset against Auburn, who was ranked nationally at 22. After a steady battle on Hitchcock Field, it was Holy Cross that tied up the series, winning 4-2. For Eagle Eye TV, I'm Sophia Weber.
2 errors causing 2 unearned runs in a game where the Tigers only lost by 2 proved to be very costly and not very ideal. Game 3 took a different turn, and where I believe Auburn's bats really shook off their offseason rust. Vivian Kennell was there to capture the moment. Take a look.
The Auburn Tigers took on the Holy Cross Crusaders at Plainsman Park Sunday, February 16th, securing a non-conference win. It was a tight contest early, but Auburn's bats caught fire late in the game, clinching a 14-6 victory. The Tigers struck first, scoring in 4 of the first 5 innings, but Holy Cross fought back and tied the game at 4-4 in the top of the 6th with a 2 RBI double. With momentum shifting, freshman Chase Freilich stepped up in the bottom of the 6th and crushed a solo home run to give Auburn the lead once again. That sparked a 5-run 6th inning, capped off by Cooper McMurray's 3-run shot to break the game wide open. On the mound, freshman Christian Chatterton impressed in his collegiate debut. He struck out 5 and retired the first 6 batters he faced, setting the tone early before handing it over to Auburn's bullpen, which kept Holy Cross scoreless in the final 2 frames. Auburn didn't stop there. The Tigers sent 25 batters to the plate in the last 3 innings, adding 10 more runs to put the game out of reach. Cade Below led the way with 3 hits, while Freilich and McMurray combined for 6 RBIs. With the secured win against Holy Cross, Auburn now shifts focus to a midweek homestand against Troy on Tuesday and North Alabama on Wednesday. For Eagle Eye TV, this is Vivian.
But the most impressive and intriguing thing from this first weekend of Auburn baseball is how efficient this new pitching staff was, from freshman to transfer and everyone who returned. The staff seemed to be on a mission. And I believe that we may see a new team entirely on the Plains if this continues. But hey, Auburn is playing right now, as I'm speaking to you, against Troy, currently losing 4-5 in the bottom of the 2nd. And we'll be back in action tomorrow night against North Alabama for Hump Day at Plainsman Park.
Thank you so much. Live updates here on Sports Night in Auburn. Look at that, back-to-back weeks with live updates. Kegan, we appreciate you, my guy. And a sweet week for Auburn sports and an even sweeter treat to leave you with before the break. Nothing better than a trivia question. What NWSL team does Auburn soccer alum Alyssa Melanson play for? A, Angel City FC, B, Bay FC, C, Chicago Stars FC, or D, Washington Spirit? We'll have the answer when we return. Welcome back to Sports Night in Auburn. We have the answer to the trivia question we left you with before the break. What NWSL team does Auburn soccer alum Alyssa Melanson play for? The correct answer is letter B, Bay FC. Melanson currently plays for the Bay City Football Club, which is the WSL team out in San Francisco, California. Last season, Bay FC recorded the most victories by an expansion team in NWLS history and reached the playoffs in its inaugural season. Melanson played over 1,300 minutes in 22 appearances last season in the league and is set to return to Bay City in 2025 after signing a 3-year contract extension in August. That big money deal will keep her in San Fran through 2027. Now, Auburn soccer, their spring schedule is out. The Tigers have a good slate of games and a good slate of opponents beginning this weekend with the lineup of games starting with the Columbus State to Clemson, Mercer, UAB, Ole Miss, and South Alabama. Coach Armstrong will coach his first game as head coach at Columbus State this Saturday. Welcome in Gehrig Gesch this time, and I know you were a cross-country guy, but you're going to talk to me more about track and field.
That's right, Vincent. Boy, did we have a big week in Auburn track and field. The Tigers had athletes in Boston and Clemson this weekend, and records were dropping everywhere. Let's start up north, where sophomore Max Harden broke the school record in the mile, running a 3:57. Now down in South Carolina, Alyssa Quinones-Mixon continued her spectacular season, setting the new program record for pole vault, clearing 4.44 meters. Staying in Clemson, Jacoby Tharp broke a school record in the 60-meter hurdles that stood no chance. The U20 world champ ran a 7.53 to secure his name in the record books. And we saved the best for last. We have not only a school record, but a world number 8 all-time 200-meter run from Micah Charamba. His 20.16 is also now the Zimbabwean national record. This led Micah to be named SEC Men's Runner of the Week. What a massive weekend for the track and field program, and they will be back in action on February 27th at the SEC Indoor Championships. Now let's go to Mackenzie, who has news on some top-ranked Tigers.
Yes, Gehrig. Number 1 Auburn Equestrian went head-to-head against the number 8 South Carolina Gamecocks this past Saturday to capture another SEC win. The Tigers came in strong, sweeping both fences and horsemanship for the win, and ended the meet with a final score of 14-6. Riding along, the Tigers have a short break until March 1st, where they will have a rematch against the number 6 Georgia Bulldogs. Now let's send it to Gehrig for some news on women's tennis.
The number 5 women's tennis team dominated their final non-conference match against Kansas State this past Saturday. The 4-0 win over the Wildcats brought their home record to a perfect 7-0 on the season. SEC play is on deck for the Tigers as they get ready to host Florida at the Yarborough Tennis Center this Sunday. Now let's go back to Mackenzie for the other half of Tiger tennis.
Auburn men's tennis took a trip to the Sunshine State this past Sunday for a doubleheader against the Florida Gulf Coast University. The Tigers concluded the first game with a win and a score of 4-1. That afternoon, Auburn brought the heat yet again for a second win and a score of 4-0 for the clean sweep in Fort Myers. Looking forward, the Tigers will hit the road yet again to begin SEC play this weekend as they take on the Florida Gators on Saturday and the South Carolina Gamecocks on Monday. Now flipping on over to Gehrig for some gymnastics coverage.
And the number 12 Auburn gymnastics team was in action this past weekend in a tough road match against the Florida Gators. Despite the loss, the Tigers were able to walk away with a season-high road score of 196.825. Coach Graba's team set a season high on vault behind scores above 9.8 from all 5 scoring gymnasts in the rotation. Another big trip awaits gymnastics as they prepare to head to Alabama on Friday night to match up against the 17th ranked Crimson Tide. Now let's swing it on over to the links for some women's golf updates. Take it away, Mackenzie.
Thanks, Gehrig. Auburn women's golf traveled to Melbourne, Florida for their 5th straight appearance at the Moon Golf Invitational, where they faced the Louisville Cardinals. Beginning this past Sunday, February 16th, the Tigers finished round 1 in a tie for 7th place. Yesterday, they fell short in the second round, bumping their placement down to a tie for 8th. After a strong finish and a final plus 13 in round 3 today, the Tigers ended in 7th place on the leaderboard. Looking ahead, Auburn will have a short break until March 3rd, where they will travel to South Carolina for the Darius Rucker Intercollegiate. Now let's dive into some coverage on Auburn Swim and Dive with Gehrig.
Auburn Swim and Dive is in the heat of SEC championships as we speak. Day 1 of the week-long competition featured rookie diver Emily Halifax, who finished 14th overall in the women's 1-meter dive to put the first points of the meet on the board for Auburn. And just a few hours ago, Whit Andrus and Talon Blackman went 18 and 19 for the Tigers in the 3-meter dive to earn the first points for the men. If you missed any of the first 2 days of action, do not worry. There are 5 more days of SEC Swim and Dive Championships coming right up for your Tigers.
Certainly a lot on the way. Gehrig and Mackenzie, thank you very much. We're about to head to break, but before we do, we've got some former Auburn Tigers that we need to highlight. Let's take on another trivia question. Which Auburn alumni was just announced to the Alabama Sports Hall of Fame class of 2025? A. Jason Duffner, B. Cam Newton, C. DeWanna Bonner, or D. Nick Fairley? We'll have the answer when we come back. Welcome back to Sports Night in Auburn. We've got the alumni answer to the trivia question we left you with just before the break. Which Auburn alumni was just announced to the Alabama Sports Hall of Fame class of 2025? The answer? Letter A, Jason Duffner. He spent 5 years on the Plains as a student athlete, going on to earn 5 PGA Tour victories in his career, one of which being the 2013 PGA Championship. He actually still lives in Auburn and actively helps the young studs of Auburn men's golf, even making sure those guys stay humble after winning the 2024 National Championship when he plays against them in practice rounds. He is now a member of a pretty elite group that made their way to the Alabama Hall of Fame. Bo Jackson, Charles Barkley, Rowdy Gaines, Pat Dye, Vicky Orr, Tim Hudson, Takeo Spikes, and so many more. His induction into the Hall of Fame is set for May 3rd in Birmingham. Let's move to the pros now, to the NBA and the NFL. A little bit of shakeup has happened over the last week for some former Auburn Tigers. Micah Farmer's coming at you with all of it.
Yeah, Vince, you mentioned last week that Chuma Okeke had been signed to a contract with the Philadelphia 76ers. Well, unfortunately for Chuma, he has been waived by the 76ers. So bouncing back and forth in and out of free agency again for a guy that just can't seem to find a consistent home in the NBA recently. And then as far as NFL free agency, Killian Zier has been signed by the Falcons. The third-year player out of Auburn, obviously, was formerly of the Houston Texans after being signed as an undrafted free agent.
Yeah, the NBA is in full swing, as is preparation season for Auburn football players who are hoping to hear their names called in the 2025 NFL Draft. Every week, Micah Farmer is here serving as the draft genie, giving you the lowdown on the Plains' best prospects. Today, it's a receiver who gave opposing DBs nightmares all year long.
Yeah, and it's a receiver, Vince, who I think should have been first-team All-SEC. Had the best stats and did it with, of the three that were chosen, the worst quarterback performance, and that is Keandre Lambert-Smith. Lambert-Smith is a dynamic playmaker. I think his biggest strength is his explosiveness. He can get up to his top speed, and that top speed keeps on going on the outside. Then also, he has great deep ball tracking ability. So I think this guy's really a deep threat when used correctly, but he can move inside-outside and does have the ability to make DBs look silly on routes, especially over the middle. I think that's another one of his big plus points. As far as the potential weaknesses for KLS, did have a late breakout. Obviously, the time at Penn State didn't produce as much as he did with Auburn, so some concerns maybe that he isn't going to be dynamic right away. Then also, he'll catch with his body sometimes over the middle, so he won't reach out with his hands and more let the ball come in and hit him in the chest before catching it. And then finally, he has some struggles off the line releasing against press coverage on the outside. So that's why some teams think of him as more of an inside receiver. Some teams think of him as a tweener. Personally, I think he'll be able to overcome that at the next level, and the athletic upside and the ability outside is just too much to pass on, in my opinion. As far as fits for KLS, I think the one that stands out the most to me is the Atlanta Falcons. You already have Drake London on the outside. That's a perfect pairing in my head with KLS on the other side. Same thing down in Houston. Obviously, the huge injury for Tank Dell, and then Stephon Diggs can never seem to stay happy in any place too long. So why not get you a new receiver on the other side of Nico Collins and KLS? And then the third fit that I really like is the Los Angeles Chargers. I think he's an upgraded Quentin Johnston. Johnson will body catch literally everything, and if it hits him in the hands, he drops it anyway. KLS does not have that problem and offers a lot of the same athletic upside as Quentin Johnston, so I think those are some of the best fits for the Auburn receiver.
You're Micah Kuiper Jr., I think is the name that we're going to give you for this draft segment that you're going to bring us every week. Thank you so much. That was awesome stuff. Now let's move into our Trending Tigers segment for today. This is just one of those moments in sports that just transcends the game itself. Auburn sophomore outfielder Cade Ballou is no stranger to hitting home runs. Last season, he ended the year by homering in each of his final 4 SEC games, becoming the first player to homer in 4 straight conference games since 2008. On Friday, just hours before Auburn's game against Holy Cross, Cade Ballou's mother, Stacy Ballou, passed away from her battle with cancer. He hit a home run on Friday evening that was unlike any home run he had hit in his life. Take a listen.
Mother of Auburn baseball outfielder Cade Ballou. Stacy passed away this morning after a battle with cancer. Our hearts and Auburn baseball are with the Ballou family during this time.
Right center. It's deep. It's gone. He hit it out of here.
Brad, some things just transcend the human experience and how sports can bring everybody together. And that's one of them.
One of the most inspiring things I've ever seen in 32 years of coaching was Cade Ballou getting a home run. sure I got that ball. Let's see.
There are home runs, and then there are what Ballou crushed into the Alabama night sky on Friday. Home runs all count the same on the scoreboard, but this one just meant more. Our thoughts and prayers are with Cade Ballou and his family during this very difficult time. Such a cool moment and a great way to wrap up our show today. This has been Sports Night in Auburn. Make sure to follow our Eagle Eye TV Sports Instagram and subscribe to our Eagle Eye TV YouTube page to keep up with us over the next couple of months. For my awesome team, our producer JoJo Cavanagh, I'm Vince Wolfram. We'll see you next week. Good night and War Eagle.